The reason why we want to understand portfolio is because by putting our money in more than one egg, so putting eggs in more than one basket, we can reduce risk. And that's the basic principle behind diversification. Common sense tells us that we shouldn't put all our money into one stock. It's much better if we put our money in multiple stocks and gain the benefit of diversification. So in the examples we created, you saw firsthand how diversification works. It helps you to reduce risk and also to without sacrificing return. What we want to see more is, well, how does diversification actually work? What makes it work? So here are the principles behind diversification. First, diversification does work. It can reduce risk without reducing expected return. And the reason that works is because when something unexpected happened to one security or one stocks, that can be offset by another stock. So it is how two stocks react to the same economic condition that creates the opportunity for diversification. And we saw that in stock A and stock B. However, as we also know that there are certain events that affects every single stock. And what that means is that there is a minimum level of risk that you cannot diversify away no matter how many stocks you own. That minimum level is what we call systematic. So when we look at an individual stock, we can now look at the risk and separate into two components. We have the systematic component, and we also have an undiversifiable component. So the systematic component is the risk that will always remain. So this will always remain. The diversifiable risk is the part that can be diversified away. So if you own a single stock, you're exposed to the total risk. But if you put your stock into a portfolio, then the diversifiable risk can be eliminated in a well-diversified portfolio. So this is very important and is a little bit confusing as a concept, so I'll repeat it again. The total risk of a stock does not change. When you buy a stock will have certain risk. And if you put all your money in the single stock, this is the risk that you will bear. However, if you own a diversified portfolio, then each stock inside your portfolio, the diversifiable portion will offset with other stocks in your portfolio, and therefore they will not impact the overall return in your portfolio. The systematic portion of the risk of that stock will remain and will affect your portfolio's risk. So very important, when you look at risk from a single stock versus from a portfolio perspective, they're very different. So when we talk about single stock and individual stock, you bear the total risk. But if you decided that you want to put your money in more than one stock, you're going to create a well-diversified portfolio, then the only risk that is left is the systematic risk. A picture is oftentimes worth 1,000 words. So let's take a look at how diversification works as you add stocks to your portfolio. So here is a graph showing what happened to the risk of your portfolio as you increase the number of stocks. So here is the standard deviation, which is a measure of risk, and this is the number of stocks in the portfolio. When you start with a single stock, the risk will be very high. The standard deviation can be as high as 49, 50%. As you increase the number of stocks in your portfolio, the risk in the portfolio goes down. So notice that this is the systematic risk, the 23.9%. This is still the total risk. This is the total risk for a portfolio with 10 stocks. However, as you increase the number of stocks in your portfolio, let's say you saw that when you go from one stock to 10 stocks, the risk goes down tremendously. It goes down from 49% to 24%. So you say, well, increasing the number of stocks in the portfolio is a good idea. We are spreading our eggs across multiple baskets. Here you put all your eggs in one basket. Now you put your eggs in 10 basket. We can put it in 20 basket, 30 basket, 40 basket, 1,000 basket. Isn't the more the better? And the answer is correct, but there's a limit to how much risk you can reduce. So you can notice that in the beginning, risk goes down tremendously as you increase the number of stocks in your portfolio. But that reduction eventually levels out, and it will never go below a certain level. So that level is the level that cannot be diversified away. So this is the risk that remains. So this is a risk that always remains. And the name for this, another name for non-systematic risk, non-diversifiable risk is systematic risk. So systematic risk will always remain. So no matter how many stocks you include in your portfolio, the portfolio will always have systematic risk. So this graph shows two things. One is what risk can be diversified away, and what risk will always remain. Know that there are many different names we call this. So diversifiable risk sometimes is also called unsystematic risk, or sometimes they are called firm-specific risk. So these are the risk that is unique to a company because every company reacts to the same economic situation differently. And those unique reactions can be diversified away. The reaction that is the same, those are the systematic reaction. They are non-diversifiable. They will always remain no matter how many stocks you have in the portfolio. So it's important to learn all the names for systematic risk. So systematic risk is also called non-diversifiable risk or market risk. And the reason they're systematic is because they affect a large number of stocks. So you can think of these as factors that affect the economy as a whole. Some examples are inflation, changes in GDP, employment, interest rate, inflation rate. So think of things that they'll affect the entire economy. And since the Great Recession of 2008, the concept of systematic risk has become much better understood, or more generally understood by the population as a whole, because we saw that there are certain things that the individual companies cannot alter, and those are the systematic risk. In contrast, unsystematic risk, they're called unique risk, they're called diversifiable risk, and these are risks that affects a small number of firms, and therefore they don't affect the economy as a whole. A particular company may face a lawsuit, product failure, strikes, CEO problems. So all of these are things that every company may face from time to time, but not all companies will face the same problem at the same time. So if you have a well-diversified portfolio, the fact that one CEO either committed fraud or have a health problem, that may significantly affect that one company, but that will not affect the economy as a whole. So those are risks that you can eliminate by diversification. Now we can look at return and decompose it into each component. So we know that there is a expected component and an unexpected component to your return. So the expected components are things that we expect to happen. And then the unexpected component happens because of risk. And there are two, now we decompose that into two additional portions, the systematic portion and the unsystematic portion. So if you look at return, now we can see this is your realized return. So we said that realized return typically is does not equal to the expected return because life always have unexpected events. The unexpected events, some of them are systematic, which means that these unexpected events affect every single companies in the economy. And some of them are unsystematic, which means that these surprises are unique to the firm. So this decomposition gives you a better idea to address and understand risk and return.